I'm going to present the Trailblazer Award for 2024. For this year's Trailblazer Award, I have been asked as president of our organization to represent all previous GCLS Trailblazers in presenting their choice of recipient. Because never has there been a year when a writer and her pioneering work have been more historically relevant to our organization of readers and writers, or more meaningful to our community nationwide. That trailblazer is Lesléa Newman. As we all know, her Lee Lynch Classic Award-winning book, Heather Has Two Mommies, published in 1989, was designed for the children of lesbian and gay parents to find reflections of themselves and their families in print. It ignited a firestorm of condemnation over the story's assumption that our formation of family was not only legitimate, but rightfully extended into parenthood. In an act without precedent for any book published in America, the work was read in its entirety into the congressional record in an outraged call for its censorship. And so it was that Lesléa Newman found herself on a national stage and in the very forefront of LGBTQ+ activism, where she rose to every challenge with determination, where she answered all the would-be censors with a personal grace and a powerful eloquence of language, propelled by her profound understanding and stated conviction that censorship of our books can only lead to censorship of our lives. The national exposure for her pioneering, groundbreaking book has inspired a procession of books across a wide spectrum of LGBTQ+ family groups, with the common denominator of portraying a nurturing acceptance and love. Books that today are under nationwide attack, the same attacks by the same cast of bigots, supremacists, misogynists, and homophobes as yesteryear. On October 12, 1998, during an appearance in Laramie, Wyoming, Lesléa Newman found herself once again at the epicenter of a national conflagration. That was the day 21-year-old Matthew Shepard died. This gay brother of ours had been kidnapped, held for hours of torture, hung up alive on a split-rail fence in near freezing temperatures for 18 hours, and lived 6 more days in a coma. To this day, Lesléa Newman shares her grief for Matthew Shepard under the spotlight of 2 powerful, enduring poetic works, October Morning, a song for Matthew Shepard, a Stonewall Honor book, and Forever Matt, a universally praised work of elegiac beauty. In the 26 years since the obscenity of his death, since the obscenity of murders who compounded their atrocity with an unsuccessful attempt to plead justifiable homicide, Matthew Shepard remains tragically relevant today. The end result of the hatred heedlessly propagated by leaders in this country. Lesléa Newman is a novelist, poet, essayist, who has opened the hearts and minds of our LGBTQ families and our allies, all the while proudly integrating her lesbian identity with her Jewish faith and culture. She's received poetry fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Massachusetts Artists Foundation. Her presence has been felt across a spectrum of books that are a model of inclusion in celebrating the breadth of our communities, books that focus on these most needful of finding positive reflections of themselves in print. Her awe-inspiring body of award-winning works extends across 85 published books, which have won honors and accolades. Her productivity, especially in the field of children's literature, has landed her on Book Riot's list of the 12 most prolific authors of all time. During this period of history, when America has cycled around to another era of certain politicians and their enablers empowering and encouraging divisiveness, the Golden Crown Literary Society is proud to recognize an extraordinary writer for an unsurpassed body of work produced in a crucible of conflict. Our organization shares her belief that indeed, censorship of our books leads to the censorship of our lives. We share her proclamation that we all have a right to be seen, witnessed, and safe in the world. We are indeed many voices, one community. Our perspectives may, often do, differ, and we all deserve to exist in the fullness of our identities. All of us must do what we can, where we can, however we can, to face head-on the irrational hatred and attempted dehumanization of our existence. For her wealth of contributions to our LGBTQ world, it is my absolute privilege to present the award to a most exemplary pioneer and trailblazer, Lesléa Newman.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, I wish each one of you could come up here and look out and see this sea of beauty that is before me. So, I spent a long time figuring out my outfit, and then you have this podium so you can't see it. So I'm going to stand here for a minute, okay? And please, now the shoes are particularly important because I almost didn't get to make this trip because I was at a writing conference last week and they lost my luggage. I know. So this week I said, I'm putting this outfit in my carry-on, okay? So my carry-on was pulled aside and I was pulled aside and they said, do you have anything dangerous in your carry-on? And I said, no. And they pulled it apart and they looked at those shoes for a long time. Danger. Femmes can be dangerous in the best way possible, right? Okay. So when I got an email from Betsy, she said, would you consider coming? And I thought, why wouldn't I come for this? My godmother, my beloved Aunt Phyllis, said the hard times in life are guaranteed. You have to create the joyful times. Right? So I take that to heart and, there's so much joy and love in this room. I will carry it with me for a long time. So I am so incredibly honored to receive the Golden Crown Literary Society Trailblazer Award, following in the footsteps of so many writers I so deeply admire. Now, some of us are old enough to remember the tradition during the AIDS crisis of calling out the names. So I want to call out the names of the trailblazers who came before me, not in mourning, but in celebration. Anne Bannon, Sarah Aldridge, Jane Rule, Catherine Forrest, Lee Lynch, Ellen Hart, Karen Callmaker, who's here, Marianne Martin, Mary Jane Meeker, Judy Grahn, Joan Nessel, Jewel Gomez, Lillian Faderman, Dorothy Allison, Sandra Scapatone, Barbara Wilson, Pat Parker, Alana Dykewoman, and Allison Bechtel. To add my name to that list of luminaries really means more to me than words can say. So I have to thank a bunch of people, and then I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to give you something to take home with you. So first of all, thank you to the members of the committee who made the decision to give me this award, to everyone at GCLS, especially Betsy, and our beloved general, who worked so hard to keep this organization going and to put on this conference, which is not an easy thing to do. Thank you to the brave feminist editors who published me way back at the start of my career, so we're going back 40 years. Nancy Bariano of Firebrand Books, who published my first novel, Good Enough to Eat, in 1986, and my first book of short stories, A Letter to Harvey Milk, in 1988. Thank you to Irene Reddy of Her Books, who published my first poetry collection, Love Me Like You Mean It, in 1987. Thank you to Sylvia Gover of In Other Words Publishing, who published Heather Has Two Mommies in 1989. Thank you to Claudia McKay and Beth Dingham for publishing short story collections, including Secrets and Every Woman's Dream. And thank you to Len Barrett of Bold Stroke Books for publishing my novel, The Reluctant Daughter. Thank you to the brave women who opened the feminist bookstores. Some of you might remember Women and Children First. Amazon Bookstore, the original Amazon in Minneapolis, right? Bloodroot, Cherish, Bookwoman, Roomba One's Own, New Words, and so many others. Thank you to my amazing agent, Elizabeth Harding, with whom I've worked since 1999. Thank you to every single person who has bought, taken out of the library, borrowed, or stolen one of my books. And of course, thank you to the butch of my dreams, Mary Grace Newman Vasquez, who has been by my side for 36 years and counting, and who, whenever I was tempted to give up on writing and get a job, said, "You have a job. Now go get to work." So it takes a village, or in my case, a large city, to get the writing done. So I'm going to tell you my coming out story, but don't get too excited because it's not X-rated. I didn't come out because I fell in love or even lust. I came out through my writing. So here's the story. One day I was standing at a bus stop in Amherst, Massachusetts, and a woman came up to me and said, "Could you pretend we're friends and talk to me because that guy is bothering me?" And she pointed kind of vaguely over there. And always eager to help out a sister, of course, I said yes. And to this day, I don't know if a man was really bothering her or she was trying to pick me up. But nevertheless, we got on the bus together, we talked, and it turned out we had a lot in common. So both of us were from New York, both of us were Jewish, and both of us were poets. And she told me she was having a party that Friday night, and women were gonna come and read their poems, and I should come and read some of my poems. So, okay. So in this point of my life, I was 27. I knew I wasn't interested in men, but I didn't know there was another option, so I just thought I was fated to be alone and miserable for my entire life. So I went to the party. I noticed all the guests were women, and somehow I figured out they were lesbians. So they were like kind of draped all over each other like kittens, you know. Somebody had their head in somebody else's lap, somebody was braiding somebody's hair, somebody was massaging somebody's feet. And then also, at one point in the evening, we all took off our shoes and socks and made a circle of our feet and compared our toes. And I thought, okay, seemed like, when I look about it in hindsight, that's kind of a lesbian thing to do. And then, some of the women started reading their poems, and they were kind of steamy. So then it was my turn to read, and I held my pages, my hands were shaking, but I managed to read my work. And the women in that room responded in such a kind, loving, enthusiastic, supportive, encouraging way. I just said, these are my people. This is my tribe. They know me, they get me, and that's how I came out, and I never looked back. So of course, the next thing I did was I went to the bookstore. So this was 1983, and we were really lucky in Northampton. We had a woman's bookstore, Woman Fire. And so there, in the stacks, I finally found my first girlfriend, Bibo Brinker, with whom I spent a very hot summer. But then eventually I did find an actual girlfriend, flesh and blood, and my book started getting published, and I'm so lucky to live the literary lesbian life. It's the joy of my life. And what does it consist of? My writing process has not changed in 40 years. I sit on my writing couch. I pick up a notebook and a pen. Yep, still write with a pen. My cat curls next to me, and unfortunately not the same cat as when I started 40 years ago. There have been many cats. So what I do is I think of every word in the English language, and I eliminate all of them except one. I put that word down. Then I think of all the words in the English language, I limit that, and I put another word down, and I do this over and over and over, right? Until I have a sentence, a paragraph, or a verse, a page, and that eventually, hopefully, I have an essay, a short story, a poem, a children's book, or whatever. And so this is what I do every day. And so the gift that I want to give you is I thought about all the words in the English language, and I eliminated them all, but one word that I wanted to give you. And that word is courage. So we are living in a rough time, and all of us need and have courage. It takes courage to come out. It takes courage to live an authentic life. It takes courage to write about our lives. It takes courage to read about our lives. It takes courage to come together and support each other. It takes courage to have conversations, which may include agreements and disagreements. It takes courage to fall in love. It takes courage to have deep friendships. It takes courage to be part of a community. It takes courage to stand up for ourselves. It takes courage to stand up for others. It takes courage to fight for our rights. And most of all, it takes courage to love ourselves. So I encourage you to have courage. We need each other now more than ever. It's a hard time. Hard times are coming. But I will make a promise to you, which is that I will continue to summon up all the courage I have to keep writing books about our lives, and I will have the courage to continue to defend those books wherever and whenever they are challenged. Thank you all for this honor, for being here, for your support and kindness and love, and for all the important work you do to make the world a better place through your stories. Thank you.